Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Missing Witches podcast. We are huge fans of Judika Illis and her encyclopedias of 5,000 spells, thousands and thousands and thousands of spells. So when we found out that she was releasing a new deck of oracles, we decided to throw her a launch party and invited members of our Weavers group to join us. So if you want to support the Missing Witches project, join the coven and be invited to events like this one. Enjoy. And blessed fucking be.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. 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 You must be a witch.
I haven't had a launch party in a long time, so this is really nice.
Oh, we're thrilled to get to launch
The
with
last
you.
time I did a launch party, I was with my coven. So it's a nice memory.
Well, we're honored to get to welcome you into the Weaver's
I
heart
am
of our
honored to be among
coven.
you.
Here are our dear coven mates popping up. Hi, everybody. Hi, hi. You'll see our special guest, Judika, is here. And we're launching her new collection of spells, her beautiful spell deck. Congratulations, confetti, launch party. But let's take a deep breath and begin the way we begin. Amy, do you want to ease us in?
So monthly we gather on or around the full moon with our Weaver Circle. And we used to start with the lighting of a Kurt Vonnegut candle, which was a gift and with a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. And we have a new candle, but I'm going to save it for next month when we have a little more time to fuck around, because today we have such a special guest that I don't want to use any of that time with my goings on. So I'm going to light this plain black candle, and let's just all take this candle as an invitation to release our self-judgment, to release our judgment of others, to come into the circle where we know that we can talk about magic without cynical eyes rolling at us, that we can be together in this space of magic. If you have a candle, light it, and when you look at its flame, know that we are in this together, that we are here to collaborate and never to compete. Again, I want to thank our guest tonight so much. I know so many of us are such huge fans. I have my little pile of your work here, Judika, beside me, and I'll probably pull a couple things out and ask you to talk about a couple of quotes.
Thank you.
Meantime, let's
That means a lot
party.
to me. Thank you.
Let's party.
Yes, it's official, listeners, coven mates. We have Judika Illis with us, the author of the encyclopedias, the tomes, the great books of spellcasting, a gatherer of our stories and the ways that we have shored ourselves up and made ourselves feel brave, a circle keeper. Judika, we're so honored to have you with us.
You are going to make me cry in a nice way.
Welcome. We're so, so happy to have you here. I would love to know about this deck that launches into the world today. Listeners, if you're listening to this, it's available to you wherever you are now. It's the Magic Spells Oracle. I wonder why or which spells felt like they needed to be in a deck, or why a deck now?
You know, this is a very good question, and I wish I had a more romantic answer for you. But my book, which is my third book, Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, was published approximately 21 years ago. And I, I, I have a complicated publishing history. And, sometimes, I publish for HarperCollins, I publish for various publishers. They don't always know what to do with metaphysical books, witchcraft books, occult books. And for 20 odd years, they have been talking about using 5,000. I mean, there's a reason the cover of Magic Spells Oracle resembles the original cover of 5,000 Spells. Not extracting it, but using it as a jumping off point, if that makes sense. And it took them, 21 years. And then all of a sudden in February, they decided we should do a deck. And they approached me, and I wanted to do it. And I was done very, they gave me sort of a concept of how many cards. My editor there, who I liked very much and who was very genuine and very respectful, she wanted to divide the cards elementally. And it is very much that elemental magic with two balancing cards is sort of the jumping off point for this deck. And which was really nice for me. I've been talking to people for the last couple weeks about this deck. And all these people have said to me how much they love that it's elemental, because that was their opening into the magical arts, into witchcraft. But it wasn't my opening. I mean, it's something that I know, and you can't cast spells without being aware of that. But it really wasn't my opening. But as I was writing it, as I was exploring it, it became very significant, insightful to me, and it left me wanting to write a bigger book on elemental magic. So who knows? Maybe that's in the future. Well, what were the spells that I wanted these spells to be spells that were accessible? Because 5,000 spells has a huge variety. There are spells that are very practical. There are spells that you can do spontaneously. And then there are spells that are very ritualistic and you have to prepare, and maybe the ingredients are expensive. And I didn't want that. I wanted this to be something that was practical and that people could use, and that would be accessible to somebody who was new and would help empower you and teach you and sort of lead you along that magical path, but that also would be interesting for people who have been doing this for a long time. Because the same old gets so boring. And now there's so, I was, I am not I am youthful in my heart, but I have been here for a while. I just turned 65. And when back in the 70s, the 80s, you read whatever you could find because there wasn't a lot. So people will say, well, what did you read? Well, I read what came across my path, and I read everything. And I think that was very common at that time. You were just so glad to have access to material that you read it. And now it's the opposite. We're bombarded, and there's just this glut, and there's so many books, and so many of them are so similar. And I'm not so sure that even all of them are written by people who've ever even cast a spell. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to fall into that. I wanted it to be original, and I wanted it to be personal, and I wanted it to be. I have several planets in the sixth house, if that means anything to anybody. I wanted people to be able to use it, and so hopefully that works.
We're going to use it, and I can't wait to do
I
it.
hope so.
We will. We'll call on those elements and open a circle and pull some cards together. But go ahead. I want to hear more about lineages.
Well, a lot of people sort of assume that there's this divide between, oh, here's magic and the mystical arts and esoterica, and then there's the real world, and then there's the practical world. But that's not true. It's all, I mean, this is the real world. the magical arts are the real world. And I wanted that to be, so people are surprised sometimes. They think it's all going to be very sort of cerebral and not, I mean, I don't even know a word for it, not usable, not doable, viable. But that's what I wanted this to be. I wanted this to be a practical thing that would become a friend, because I think cards are our allies and our friends and our, our secret keepers. And and that's what I wanted this to be. And you can use it as an oracle deck. You can use it as um, a magical resource, as a magical tool. There's, you can cast spells with these cards, but you can also read them, uh, just like any other deck of cards.
I would love to hear how your approach to witchcraft has changed over the years.
I think it has deepened. How has it changed over the years? I think there was a very pivotal moment for me. And I think that as I speak with people, people tell me of similar experiences. I I came into this incarnation in love with witchcraft. And maybe it helped that I had a mother who also found it attractive, although she would not call herself a practitioner. Although a couple of spells and 5,000 spells came from her. But um, I have always loved witchcraft and all the trappings of witchcraft and witchery and witches. And, there was a point where a lot of, people call it aesthetic witchcraft. If there's a beautiful full moon and I have a tree outside, and maybe I'm going to go dance around the tree later. And, those sort of very romantic, beautiful aspects of witchcraft were very, very attractive to me. And, in 5,000 spells, the first spells that I included were these beautiful, poetic Moroccan spells. They're just so gorgeous. Um, and I love that kind of very visual, very, very, I mean, it's all magic, but there is a romantic aspect to it that I love. And then, I hit a point in my life where I had a crisis, and I had a crisis that could not be solved by conventional means. So, a lot of people told me just to, well, this is life and accept it. And I did not. And even though I had been practicing witchcraft and I was already in a coven and I was already, you know, I wasn't new to this, but I sort of thought, what the hell? I'm going to find expel and I'm going to cast it, because worst comes to, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to be left with your problem. There you are. But I decided to try it, and it worked. And it worked. And that was a real changing point for me, because I went from someone who loved witchcraft and loved engaging in it to somebody who was really an everyday spellcaster, somebody who was now it became something that was part of my life, and I took it very seriously, and I've never turned back from that. And I hear that from a lot of other people, and that's not a criticism. There's sort of no right way or wrong way to do this, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with dressing up like Sneaky Nicks and dancing under the moonlight. If it brings you joy and empowerment, there is nothing wrong with that. So, people sometimes trivialize that, but you are tuning into the universe and tuning into your power, and there's absolutely, and maybe you have a life where you don't have a crisis that needs a magical solution. But for those of us who have had those situations, it is like being struck by lightning in a good way. It is that experience where what the hell, I'm going to try this, and it works. And it works really well, maybe better than anticipated. It is a phenomenal experience, and I don't think there's going back from that. So I would say that's the biggest change. When I wrote my first book, which was uh, which ironically it's gone through 4 editions. It was originally Earth Mother Magic. It's now the Wiser Classic edition of Pure Magic. When I wrote that book, which I wrote like in 1999, although it wasn't published until about 2001. I I didn't think anybody was going to read it. I honestly didn't think anybody was going to read it. I used my real name because I didn't think I needed to have an alias. I mean, a lot of witchcraft writers have aliases, and a lot of they're undetectable aliases because their names, like Jane Smith or something, they look like a real name, but that's not. Um, I used my real name because I didn't think I had any. I didn't think anybody was going to read my book. I had an opportunity to write one, and I really wanted to write it, so I did. And then I have an accent on my last name, in my last name on the E, but my editor at the time told me she didn't think Americans could handle accent marks. And I said, okay, whatever. So you'll see if I sign a book, I almost always sign it with the accent. It looks like I'm just, people think I'm just like, I don't know, scribbling, but there is actually an accent mark there. But I wasn't going to argue with her because I just thought I was so lucky to be published. If you had told me then that that book would be considered a classic, I would have laughed. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think that over the years I have become more confident and I have become more open in how I talk about witchcraft. And time will, the more time you spend on spell casting and on practicing, and it is worth practicing it even if you don't have a crisis, because it's good to have your muscles, it's good to have your skills for just in case you do have something in the future. But I I used to be very, very discreet about it. I don't apologize for anything anymore. I don't, I'm very upfront. I'm very frank about it. I wrote, and this is true, the Witch's Almanac put out an edition of Aradia, the Gospel of the Witches. And there are many editions of that book, but it's the public domain. But this is the Witch's Almanac edition, and what they did to differentiate it is they brought in different authors to write essays about it. Myself and Laurie Bruno, and all sorts of people. And I wrote about the experience of if I am in the mood to reduce a room to silence, this is what I have learned to do. You go into a social situation, and everybody's talking about, what do you do? What do you do? Who are you? What do you do? Oh, you're a teacher. Oh, you're a real estate broker. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're a surgeon. How wonderful. And I say, I'm a fortune teller. And you can hear a pin drop inevitably, because they start looking at me because they cannot tell. Am I serious? Is this a joke? Are they supposed to be laughing? And no, I have no shame. I am a fortune teller. I read cards. I don't object to the terminology. There's a long, long lineage of fortune tellers, and I am honored to be among them. I can call myself other things also, but that will just, it will silence a room. And I kind of enjoy that now. So I think I have changed. My magic maybe has developed more. I I have a day job. I'm an editor of Wiser Books, and so I read a lot of other people's work, and some of it is really wonderful. I just edited a book by Nicholas Pearson called The Witching Stones, and it was so interesting, and it really did. All these things, they do add to my practice. And the wonderful thing about the magical arts is you can you never stop. You can keep learning and expanding and evolving, and as long as you're capable of doing so.
I have kind of a two-part question that
Okay.
is related to this because many people, many witches, many fortune tellers do magic and do spells, but don't feel compelled to make books, I want to read a quote from you.
Uh-oh.
And no, it's like I carry it in my heart. You wrote, not only are magical texts among the oldest surviving pieces of literature, but many scholars and anthropologists suggest it was the need to record spells and divination results that stimulated the very birth of writing. So can you like expand on that idea and also how you see your books fitting into that tradition?
Oh yeah. I mean that's based on anthropology and archaeology. That's not even a particularly controversial thing. People are ambivalent about magic. My kids like to watch these these streaming paranormal shows, and occasionally I watch with them. I was watching something with them last night, and it was really interesting. It, and half of the program was on this really interesting paranormal thing, and the other half of it, which happened like 100 years ago, and the other half of it was the host who clearly is into this because he spent a lot of time like researching this and presenting it, and there was art, and then he spent the second half of the show explaining why maybe it wasn't paranormal, maybe it was like a mass hypnotism, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. It's like he's telling people 100 years ago what he thinks it is. He wasn't there. This is what they said they experienced. You can say that it whatever, but this is what they wrote and said, multiple people. And so, I mean, what I'm saying are facts, but sometimes people don't encourage the transmission of these facts. The earliest documented writing we have in Samaria, in Mesopotamia. We have they are of two sources. There are lists of prophecies, because if you have a prophecy, you have to remember what it is, if only so if it doesn't come true, the ruler can go and like find the prophet a year later and punish them. But recordings of prophecies, there's recordings of, I think, crystals and gemstones and what they're used for. There's some recordings of spells. The other thing that comes from that time are taxes. And so if you're looking for the absolute most ancient writings, it's magic and taxes. And I mean that still, if you know, going over to China, one of the earliest forms of divination was they would heat up turtle shells and interpret the cracks. Because if you're a diviner, you can interpret anything. Once you can actually, it's the process of divination that you have to learn. Not so much, you might have a form. One person might like cards, one person might like runes, someone else likes casting, or whatever it is. But it's the actual act of divining that is the art. And so, I mean, we know that this is like the birth of the alphabet. There's a very interesting book, and I have some caveats about it, but it's Leonard Slane, a book called the Goddess of the Alphabet. And Leonard Slane's premise is that as people became literate, they became more patriarchal versus it's not about being illiterate, it's about being non-literate. Um, and how culture changes. And he goes through various different cultures, and he does talk about this transition and literacy, and how often the earliest forms have to do with shamanism and prophecies and magic. And so, I mean, that is there from the start, recording that knowledge. How I fit into that lineage, I didn't set out to become a metaphysical writer. That is not what I wanted to do initially. That was something that was very personal for me. I started collecting spells, the spells that became 5,000 spells, but I did it because I thought it was interesting. I was just doing it for myself. But I had an opportunity. Well, I had an opportunity to publish my first book, And I wanted to do it because I am very aware of how, for centuries and millennia, magical practitioners have been persecuted and how the knowledge has been suppressed. In my book, Encyclopedia of Witchcraft, I have a section about books that we cannot read. We cannot read these books because they were destroyed. The Sibylline prophecies, the various. I mean, these are documented books that existed, and now we cannot read them, and that bothers me because as soon as somebody bans a book, I buy a copy. I can't help it. That's my personality. I just, you tell me I can't read something. I want to know what you think I shouldn't know. So but it was easier a century ago or two. And the last Gerald Gardner and Dion Fortune, they wrote their first books as novels because it was illegal to write a book that put witchcraft in a practical, positive light. So I could not, before the 1950s, I could not, in the United States, I don't know about Canada, but although I would imagine they would have the British laws. In the United States, practical books on the magical arts, if you mailed them, it was a postal fraud because it was considered a scam. So there are all these things preventing people from reading and writing this, documenting this knowledge. But a couple hundred years ago, books were often handwritten, and maybe there were only two or three copies, and maybe those copies weren't even identical, and you could burn those books. We don't even know. Apparently, there's a hoard in the Vatican. We don't even know what they have. Um, Maybe they don't even know what they have at this point, but there's stuff there that I can't read. I am not. It is not available to me. And then even when printing came about, they were printing in small numbers. But now, if you have a book published by a publisher, you know, and I work for a small publisher, every book, there's at least 4,000 copies published. 4,000 copies that are sold worldwide and that are mailed. Those books will never, that knowledge will never be entirely destroyed. People tell me, I treasure this. Someone told me they sent a care package to their kids in the Peace Corps in Tanzania, and they put my books in there. So my books are floating around Tanzania. People tell me, "Oh, I saw your book in the airport at Dubai. I saw your book here. I saw your book there." And so even if things are made illegal, they will never be able to destroy every single copy of a modern published book now. And I was very conscious of that when I started writing my spell books, because I am documenting information that cannot be destroyed. And so much has been destroyed. So I feel very lucky to be able to do that.
I think we're all still mourning the Library of Alexandria. I think
Sure.
about it like way more than I should,
Oh,
honestly.
yeah. And not just Alexandria. I mean, there are libraries on, I'm told in Persia and, Genghis Khan, and, it was burnt. So oh, we don't even know what we don't know. So we know what we don't know, but then there's even more. We don't know it to the extent that we don't even know we don't know it.
But now here we are
And
with a
sometimes people
little,
ask me, 5,000 spells, because some of the spells are practical and some of them are very much not practical. But I wanted to document those also because I wanted them to be there so that people could read about them and know, allegedly these things existed. I mean, because some of them are sort of, it is, there are spells that it's hard to believe that anybody actually cast, but maybe they did. Who knows? They say they did.
I think it's hard not to be so aware right now of the moment that we meet in, the moment that we're in circle in, that our knowledge and people are deeply in danger in the United States and around the world. And so, all the more urgent for us to be together and to celebrate spells coming to us in the form that we can keep close to us, like in this precious deck that you've made. And so, I want to open a circle now for divination. I would invite the weavers who are here with us, the circle within the circle of our coven, spellcasters, activists, artists, weaving at the very heart of our community. If you have a deck with you or a divination tool. And I don't know, Judika, if you always call a circle before you pull cards, but
No,
no.
no, but also, I actually, people write to me and actually thank me for saying this because it is very much the norm to cast a circle in the West.
Hmm.
And by the West, I mean North America, Northern Europe, Western Europe. But I am, the first person in my lineage to be born in North America. And when you get to Eastern Europe, they don't cast circles. It's not customary. I mean, they will do other kind of things. So I mean, I have cast circles. I had a coven and we have cast circles, but it is not my personal practice. And I mean, I'm going to be honest. I did warm up. I shuffled my cards. I did a little ritual myself before I signed on with you. I come prepared.
She comes with her cloak already on, metaphorically speaking. I had to take mine off due to a hot flash immediately
Well,
before you
actually,
guys
not just
joined.
metaphorically.
I literally gorgeous. Um, we call circles in different ways in our coven. We play. It's part of how we practice. Um, Different members have written different beautiful versions. Um, Sometimes we all unmute and call out associations. Recently, we called them out and all applauded enthusiastically for each one. It was really joyful.
Right.
But when Amy and I first started to practice, it was very much in a spirit of play and art. Um, we called in the simplest possible version. And I've gone back to that a lot recently when I feel totally overwhelmed, when I just want to make a simple space around myself. So I invite you to unmute if it feels comfortable with you and whisper or mutter or yell this to yourself and to us and out to the world before we pull cards for what we can offer the broader world at this time, at the thinning of the veil, when this message will be shared. It goes like this: north, south, east, west, earth, air, fire, water. North, south,
South, east,
east, west, earth,
earth,
air, fire,
fire,
water. North, south,
north,
east,
south,
west,
east,
earth,
west,
air,
earth,
fire,
air,
water.
fire,
North,
water.
south, east,
East,
west,
west,
earth,
north,
air,
air,
fire,
fire,
water.
water.
North,
North,
south,
south,
east,
east,
west,
west,
earth, air,
air,
fire,
fire,
water.
water.
North,
North,
south,
south,
east,
east, west,
west,
earth,
earth,
air,
air,
fire,
fire,
water.
water.
I love
Thanks, everyone. Judika, will you pull a card for us?
Does someone, I have the cards here and they're all shuffled up. Does somebody want to help me pick a card or do you have a number I should pick?
I guess my thought was to simply pull on in response to the question at first, just what do we need now? And so I would invite everyone to just pull one card to start.
I'm going to
And
pull
then,
I'm going to pull the bottom card. What do we need now?
all right.
Because that's the base. And so that's the front of the card. And oh, look at this. The card is the element of fire, and it's the lamp. Ah, we need illumination, and we need vitality, and we need to keep our hopes and our hearts strong and up, and not to not to lose our light, not to lose our vision. But it's that lamp. I always think of the hermit from the tarot, and that's sometimes a very lonely position to walk with the lamp. But we are illuminating a path, and we're illuminating it for the people behind us as well as for ourselves. And I would say we are certainly in need of illumination.
And I wonder your expertise as a reader, what is the question behind that question? Or what is the next logical question, do you think?
Tell me the first question again.
Just what do we need to know now?
What do we need to know? And now that we know what we need to know, how do we accomplish that?
Mm.
So I'm going to pull the next card. It's the full moon in Aries tonight. These cards are well shuffled, but we have two fire cards here. There is a gemstone card for each of the elements. This is the ruby, and rubies are traditionally about, they fortify. They fortify your health. They fortify your will. And I think this is an attunement with this full moon in Aries. It's a fire moon, and it is. I've been reading all this astrological. I mean, this isn't just me. I've been reading the last couple of days of various astrologers and what we need to know about this moon. And people are saying we will still be in the eclipse season for a little bit longer. Various astrologers are saying, I want to say October 20th before we really pass through this eclipse season, which I have found very profound this particular season. And I think it is a good time for new beginnings, a good time to not recreate maybe, but to, if you are not happy or not entirely content with yourself, with your life, with your goals, with your accomplishments, what are you doing every day? And does it bring you joy and empowerment? And are you, do you feel that you're a beneficial force? This is a good time to reevaluate and to have that opportunity to, step into the threshold. Aries is the first sign. Step into the threshold of who are you now? Like, we don't have to, every day is a new opportunity, a new portal to become more of who we should be or we want to be, or, we come into this world, you look at your natal chart and you have potential and challenges and desires. What I know what I wanted to be when I was 4, who I wanted to be as an adult. And I mean, my thing about telling people I want to be a fortune teller, I told that to people when I was 4, and it did not reduce the room to silence. I think I got hit in the head a couple of times. But you have the opportunity. The Aries moon guides you to have that opportunity to start fresh, because life comes around and influences us, teachers and parents and people we need and circumstances and all these things. Sometimes we lose who we are. We lose who we wish to be. Other people come. I always tell people, those words are so magical. Just to be careful when people come and they sort of point, you are this kind of a person. Even if it's good, you're smart, you're smart, you're dumb, you're this, you're that. That is in a way a little bit of a form of a curse. You have It's up to you to say, I am this kind of person. And you can change your mind and say tomorrow, you know what, I made a mistake and I'm actually this kind of a person, as opposed to having other people tell you who you are. And I think the Aries moon enables us to, it makes it easier with the Aries moon. Those Aryan energies are helping us emerge into our lives. And the illumination, to look into yourself, to highlight who are you, and where do you want to go, who do you want to be, who is the real you that maybe has been suppressed, and suppressed with love. Sometimes people, they want the best for you, or they're afraid for you, or they have whatever reason. So it's not necessarily a malicious thing. It might be a well-meaning thing, but it can still be a crippling thing. So I think this is, I wasn't kidding when I said I plan to later go out and, you know, visit my tree and take a look at the commune with the moon. It is a good time to maybe have some affirmations, and those are magical also. And where do you want to be next year? Or where do you want your surroundings to, the world is a very big place. I mean, I could say, where do you want the world to be? But the world is that is very inclusive of a lot of territory. But maybe specifically, you may have a coven, or you have a community, or you have a relationship, whereas something that you can really see. Where what do you want it to be the next time we have a full moon in Aries?
Speaking of seeing things the way you want to see them, can you talk briefly or longly about the artwork on the cards, bringing
Oh,
your verbal ideas into
I am
this
not I wish
imagery?
I was an artist. I wish I had designed them, but I did not. I saw on the website that you did something for Rachel Pollack recently. And I was Rachel Pollack's her editor of Wiser Books. And it's one of the treasures of my life that I was able to work with Rachel. And she did the I worked with her, before she passed, on the Shining Tribe Tarot, and that was her artwork. And she, was also, she came into that where she wasn't necessarily an artist, but she could see what those cards should look like. And I know that in the beginning, when she was first working, as she was working the deck many years ago, other artists, they didn't quite capture her vision. And so and they're beautiful. We restored that deck, had been published previously, but she had not been happy with the colors. And so we restored it to her vision. And so, in this particular case, I mean, this is an interesting deck to work on because there's a collaboration between two publishers, my two publishers, which is rare. HarperCollins, which publishes my large encyclopedias, and then Wiser Books, where I work and where I publish my smaller books. And the creative director, Catherine Skypack, and I mean, we are, she's my partner in crime. And so the artwork was partly my direction, partly Catherine, and partly the department at Harper Custom in London. So it was sort of a combination of all of us. But I like collaboration. I like working with people. So that's I had veto rights and everything.
I like collaboration with veto rights too.
Yeah, yeah.
But speaking of collaboration, I would love to hear from other weavers who are here what cards you pulled for those same two questions. And Judika, I thought it was so interesting you were talking about the urgency or possibility of us reinventing ourselves, of us putting down titles or boxes or structures that have been put on us. We It's so important to us, this Alan Watts quote. We say it all the time in the coven: you're under no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago.
Oh, I love
And
that quote.
and so we always invite each other to reintroduce ourselves, whoever you are today. And so, coven mates, if you're going to share a card, I invite you to reintroduce yourself to Judika, and to the listeners, share whatever name or piece feels useful to briefly share, and then share your reading. You can use the raise hand or go for it, Reed. I saw you pull cards.
I was trying to wait. I am a fire sign, air sign. So I felt right at home whenever you pulled those cards. Well, Judika, thank you for being here. My name is Reed. Today I am someone who is doing my best with everything that is happening in the larger world and in my world personally. And I'm really grateful to be here. And today I'm a witch. I am a witch. I have been leaning into my witchcraft, and I am walking around, cloak right behind me. I am a witch. So the cards, I use a pendulum. I use jumpers. I love the Rider Waite just for whatever reason, though, that imagery. And my ancestors never just pop out one card, so I will bring them together, and like I'm sure people can read them together. But the three that popped out for what do we need now was the Nine of Wands. I think we all need a nap. And then strength. We all need strength. But then put in the Page of Cups, and, like a new way of loving. That's something that's been for me lately, like figuring out how to lead heart forward and to lead with love. Heard it for years, still trying to get it. And then how do we accomplish this? We accomplish this through death, through letting things die, through letting them go. That is how, well, I can't mirror. That is how we get a new work. That is how our new work begins, as through death. And I write and research about women who have left Christianity to practice witchcraft. And I'm a former clergy member. And one of the things that always drove me crazy about being in the church, and I'll say this and let it go, um, is that for an institution that preaches resurrection, they sure are afraid of death. Like, white knuckled, gripping, holding on so that their way won't die, because they don't believe in resurrection. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for letting me participate.
Vermilion, I would love to hear from you. It's so nice to have you here.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I'm Vermilion, and I am a blind brown person who is super excited to get to be here tonight. And the card that I chose for what do we need right now, and it's definitely the message that I needed right now, but I got the Chariot, um, which makes sense because it's a card of tenacity and willpower, and like just continuing on, like that forward momentum, that drive. um and even if that forward momentum is, productive rest, like Reed was saying, like taking a nap, like you wouldn't necessarily think that could be interpreted as going forward, but like honestly, I do think that is an integral part of what it looks like to be able to keep going. Like if you have no gas in the tank, like there's no forward momentum. So it's all sacred.
I took a deep breath as you said that. Did you pull a card for how we achieve it?
I did not, because I thought that we were only pulling one, but
Yeah,
that's
well,
okay.
then maybe you just pulled the only one we needed.
We accomplish so much during sleep. Like,
Mm.
it's sort of very judgmental. Oh, you're sleeping, you're not doing anything. But there's all this, on the physical level, there's all this research about, cellular regeneration and what's going on in your body when you're sleeping. It's very interesting, not to mention the dreaming. So if you can't, you need to sleep. I think that was very profound.
Katie, I would love to hear what you think of the cards you pulled.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And we see your
Okay.
tree, we see your tree companion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wearing headphones, like Bluetooth headphones, and I've never talked with them on before. And they're too big for my ears. My ear holes are smaller than somebody else's headphones that are in my ears. So I'm using the Wild Unknown deck by Kim Krantz, and I pulled the Father of Wands, and so fire, a fire card, fire and spirit, and for what we need to know now. I'm still I haven't really thought on what this card means in reference to that question. So father or king, right? So she uses like a familial thing. But I like that it's a serpent and has like a lightning bolt, and well, it's a cobra and it's like coiled around the wand. So yeah, I don't know. I have to sit with it, and I'm totally open to anybody else's thing with it. But then the next card that I pulled a card, and then a card jumped out. So I had to use the jump out card because those usually are like significant. The card I pulled was the Ace of Cups, like new beginnings. I like in the realm of water, love, emotion. But the card that jumped was the Star, the card of hope. I love this card. And so I was kind of like, because it was like, well, what do we need now? Okay, well, we need like I don't know, like a new, if I look at this I don't like to look at things in terms of like politics and leadership and whatnot, because I kind of hate all those things. But if I do, maybe this is representing not like a person, but just like a vibe. And yeah, and then I feel like this is sort of this combined with like a new beginning, like a new way of being, like where love and empathy are sort of at the center, and we have to have hope, because yeah, otherwise we can just give up, because that's easy. And I feel like that's sort of what people want, like the powers that be, like want people to do. They want people to be overwhelmed and in fight, and then just like give up and lay down and not fight. But maybe we don't fight with the same sort of like weapons of mass destruction sort of thing. We fight by holding each other up.
Judika, talk to us for a minute about the power of hope.
Oh, it's one of my favorite cards too. And I love that it comes after the tower, because after if you think about it, and I love the Rider-Waite-Smith cards also. They are I love a lot of cards, but those are my old dependable. And you see the people blown out of the tower and the foundations, just destroyed. And where are you when that happens? It looks like everybody's gone. But in fact, the very next card is the Star. We can see this, I was thinking she has no clothes because they've been blown off. And it is this fresh beginning in this beautiful garden. The tower is gone and we're back to the beginning, and we have hope. And if we don't have hope, I mean, then what is existence with no hope? you know, and I think that even from a magical perspective, I get asked a lot of questions like, do you have to believe in a spell for it to work? And no, absolutely not. Like, do you have to believe in an aspirin? No. I mean, it's going to work or it's not going to work, but it has nothing to do with your belief. But the one thing you do have to believe with the spell, I think, I know, is that it is possible, it is potentially possible that maybe life could get a little bit better. Because if you don't have that hope, if you are invested in, well, this is it, everything is terrible, everything is shit, nothing's ever getting better, it's like driving with your parking brakes on. Your spell is not going to work because then you have to sort of prove to yourself that you're wrong, and that's a dangerous place to be. But yeah, absolutely, hope is a requirement. I think for us to have any kind of a positive existence, because you know world's pretty bad out there. And if this is it, if this is as good as it gets, why are we here then? Then it's just we need them. I mean, I am really enjoying these cards. I think they're all what we've had. They're so on target. Um, I don't, but the star is such an important card, I think, because that opportunity, yes, there's been a disaster. Yes, terrible things have happened. Yes, our plans did not work out as we wanted. Yes, this thing happened unexpectedly. And now we have an opportunity to regroup, to start again, and from a fresh perspective. We don't, that tower's gone. We don't have to like get a construction crew and try to piece it back together because it's gone. We can do whatever we want now.
We can do whatever we want now.
We can try.
Yeah. Melissa, I'd love to hear the cards you pulled.
Hello. So first I got the Hermit, and I have been playing around with the Desert Illuminations deck. So a lot of Southwestern iconography, and it's just been like trying to heal my I'm an American wound, trying to find some things in our culture I still think are cool. Um, and this deck is amazing, but it's a lonesome cowboy, cow person, the beautiful moon. We've worked a lot with the Hermit this year. And for me, one of the things I took from the Hermit is that, like, it's not just about isolation. It's about fucking off to that cave for a little bit to do what you need to do so that you can light the path for others. And I think I used to see it as more imbalanced as that. And for me, this has been one of the most like physically isolating times of my life, but I have never been held more in community. So again, I'm in a cave. I literally look like I'm in a fucking cave tonight. But like, you know what I mean? Like the wisdom of this group, to me, the star that's also in the traditional lantern, it all kind of ties back. I'm also an atheist deitist who's really into Hecate. So of course a torch had to come up tonight. So thank you. What the hell do we do with it? So wands in this deck are chilies. Oh, man, it's just so fucking cool. So first was 9 of Wands. And then the Ace of Wands, or chiles. And to me, I mean, fire on fire on fire, baby. How do we take this energy that is so fiery and passionate and not burn it out, right? Like, I like spicy food, but if I don't do the right things before and after, I can sometimes pay the price for it. And for me, it's like the same thing where it's like, we're going to get high as hell off of the endorphins of what comes next. But how do we not like lose that joy, that softness? how do we take this potential that is the seeds and like have patience? And like, how do we balance the warmth and also the times where it gets a little dark? And for me too, the 9 of chilies in this deck, we've already endured a lot. And I think the word resilient is kind of like lost a little bit of its value. But to me, resilient is quiet. And it's a quiet strength that witches, women, femmes, queers, the empathetic, beautiful souls that I get to spend time with in this coven, like, we're resilient as fuck. And we should also take a moment and hold each other in that. And that is the hope for me, is that like, I'm not alone in this. Judika, you were one of the first books I ever bought in witchcraft, and I got away with it because of the way that cover was designed. Because my mom was like, "Oh, botanical." Then my mom got into it; it was cool. We're all cool now. But thank you so much for all of your work. You have given me a structure and taught me that the research is so much more important than even the convoluted craft sometimes. Because knowing where it comes from for me.
That is sacred.
Connects me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Judika, I'd love to hear if you had any thoughts about the cards that were pulled, especially coming back to that lantern you pulled for us.
Well, I have to say, I've never seen that Desert Illuminations deck before, and I'm going to go and get a deck because that is gorgeous. And I love chili peppers myself, so that is, I love that. Oh, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of the cards were complementary tonight. I said, that lantern always reminds me of the hermit, and then the hermit appeared. So, and of course, the moon is a lantern. The obvious. The moon itself is a lantern illuminating us. And I was actually thinking, how do we get from the lantern to the ruby? And the lantern throws a light that illuminates a path for many. And of course, we're all looking up at the same moon. And the ruby is more personal because ruby is also, a fine ruby. It has light. And so I think taking that lunar energy, and this is a fire moon, that fiery lunar energy, and bringing it down to the personal, and maybe to, I will tell you what I am doing if this is maybe helpful for anyone. I mean, I am genuinely, and I say it because I know too much about a lot of authors. I am genuinely a practitioner. It is what I do every day, but I am a solitary practitioner at this time in my life. I have had a coven, but unfortunately, as you get older, you lose people. So I have become a much more solitary practitioner, and I do a lot of visualizations for myself. And I think I will visualize it. I mean, that's personal. I was born in July, and the ruby is my birthstone. But to envision that lunar energy coming down into myself, the way drawing down the moon, but on a very simple personal level, and maybe creating some sort of a talisman for myself, even if it is not a actual physical talisman, but a visualized talisman, a visualized amulet, something that will bring the light, because there's a lot of darkness. And I'm not even negative about darkness, because I like the night, and I find that I have good night vision, and I like walking around in the dark. That's not a problem for me. But I also love the light. So finding that balance between the little bit of light and the darkness, the dark and there's that contrast and that balance. I like that. So that is what I think. But I think we do need that illumination. There's just so much misinformation and challenges, and it's very easy to get disheartened. It's very easy to lose hope. And I think it's a very natural thing, and you can lose hope for a short amount of time, but you can't lose hope entirely for too long, because then you fall into depression, and you can't accomplish your goals, you can't accomplish your magic. So that's really the little light that you have to protect. I don't know if anybody has read, they made a terrible animated movie out of it. It's just awful. But there is a modern fairy tale called The Princess and the Goblin. It's presented as a book for children, but it's actually was written as sort of a spiritual work. And there is a little princess in a castle who, in her explorations of the castle, goes to a turret where she discovers this ancient woman spinning, who is or who is tells her that she is her, many times grandmother, that she's a goddess, and nobody else in the castle knows she's there. But she's very helpful to this little girl, and she gives her a silver thread that only she's weaving this silver thread, and only she can see, only the little princess can see it. And when there is a crisis, her ancient grandmother tells her, you have to follow the thread. And she has this lunar silver thread, and she follows the thread. And no people mock her because no one else can see it, feel it, but she can. And she has faith in herself. And at some point, like, the thread leads her like to rocks and sort of dead ends, but then she moves the rocks and goes into these caves. And it is the ability to apprehend and know that you have the sacred silver thread, and the ability to follow it. And she does a lot of good. She's the heroine of the story, and she does it by following that silver thread that no one else can see. And I always think that's an illumination, a lunar, that silver, the lunar, the goddess no one else can see, the thread no one else can see, the danger that no one else can see, but she fixes it. And I think that's what that lantern reminds me of. Our inner lanterns, that our lunar inspired inner lanterns.
I want to spotlight another one of your projects momentarily. I'm holding this up. It's another deck from Judika, and it's not an oracle deck. It's sort of it's
It's
the
a
card.
weird little deck.
It's wonderful. All of the cards have a protection spell on them. And so for me, it has been like anti-anxiety medication. If I'm having one of those moments where I feel like I need protected from whatever force is causing this fear, this stomach churning. And sometimes I don't even do the spell, honestly. Sometimes just pulling the card and reading the spell and meditating on it is enough to give me that feeling and that sense of
Oh, I'm so glad.
protection.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I love
please
that
tell us
anti-anxiety
more.
medication. Oh, I've been telling people, I worked really hard to get published. I really wanted to get published. I have a lot of rejections. So, it took me a long time to get published. But these decks, 2025, I mean, I joke, I woke up one morning and I was a deck creator. Um, Wiser Books has a series of mini decks. They're little decks. See, this is the other deck, which is a sort of a normal size deck. It's a tiny little deck. It's very inexpensive. I don't know what they're selling it for in Canada. And the US, it's $12.95, the list price. And 36 protection cards. And there are people who use it as an oracle deck. This deck could be a lot of things. There are people who use it as an oracle deck. The Catherine Skypack talked me into this. I mean, she didn't have to talk me. I love snakes and I love moons. And there are tons of snakes and moons. And so she showed me the snakes and the moons, and I said, sign me up. And they're not all the same. Like the backs of the cards are not all the same. And so there are people who use it as an oracle. There are people who use it. It's an unbound book that'll teach you about protection magic. Um, I love that anti-anxiety medication. I don't know if people know Eliza Einhorn. She's an author. I am editing her book Terror of the Unconscious right now. Eliza went back to school to be an analyst and discovered further insights into her career as a tarot card reader. And she's got some videos up. She's been reading the fronts of the cards, and it's amazing. Um, where are the snakes looking? What kind of snakes? What are they doing? How many moons? So I have had so much fun with this. I mean, it is kind of, this is the reinvention. I am 65 years old, and all of a sudden I became a deck creator. Like I wasn't a deck creator 5 years ago, but here I am. So don't give up hope. You don't know where you'll be in fight, and it makes me. I love cards, so this makes me really really happy, and I love the people I work with. So, um, I, and I have no control over this, but it makes me very happy that these are reasonably priced cards, because I have had people tell me that they leave these cards like in ladies' rooms, because they leave it like in like coffee shops. They'll leave a card because somebody needs that card. And you can do that with the 12.95 deck. Or if you want to actually use the card in a spell, cards have gotten so expensive, ridiculously expensive. They didn't used to be. Um, and so, like, now if you want to use a card in a spell, like in a candle spell, we recommend, you should make a copy of the card, and then you have to trim it, and then you have to do this or that. But you can lose a card and get another deck. It is a reasonably priced enough that you can do it. There is no book with this. All the text is, it's a no frills. It's actually on the cards. People tell me that they use it for travel security, because you find yourself in a hostel or a hotel room, or staying in someone's house, and you're nervous, and so they pull out a card, and it just, even if it is not exactly their situation, it might give them a guidance, a direction as to what will make them a little bit more feel better, feel more secure. Sometimes you just, you, there's something going on and you don't know what it is, and so this will give you a direction.
Will you pull a protection spell
I
for
will.
us to end the recorded piece of this circle? And let's ask for protection, because we will share this circle for Halloween, Samhain, All Souls. So what do we need for protection as the
Should
veil thins?
somebody want to pull a card? Should I pick one from the top, the bottom?
You shuffle and pull, I think.
I shuffle and pull. Okay. I did shuffle. I did. I mean, they are well shuffled, but let me shuffle just a little bit more. And let's see what we've got. Okay. So this is the front of the card.
Can you describe it?
Yeah, hold on. This card, well, I can in a minute. My eyes are not what they used to be. And I am going to turn on the flashlight on my phone so I can really see the card. It is a series of moon phases with the full moon in the middle. So I don't know if you can see, and the waxing and waning moons, with one large snake sort of sinuously right in front of it. That serpentine lunar energy. And the information on the back is about bells. Ring those bells. And I am going to read you the back of the card. It says, the sound of clanging metal is believed to cleanse the atmosphere, banish low-level malicious spirits, and provide protection for those within listening range. In a pinch, you can bang pots and pans, but metal bells are ancient and more subtle instruments of magical protection. One, here's some instructions here. Cleanse the bells by passing them through incense smoke. Two, charge the bells with intent. Hold them and tell them what you seek. And for just in case for somebody who has never charged anything, you traditionally use your left hand or your non-dominant hand, and you hold it in your hand. I close my eyes. You don't have to, but I mean, I find it helpful. Hold it in your hand, keep your eyes closed, and focus on what you want the bell or whatever item you can do this with anything. What is the goal? What do you want it to do? Like, tell it what you want to do. Like, maybe if you had a living companion, a dog, often you'll tell the dog, I'm scared, sit at the front door and like bark at something. And you're basically telling this what seems to be an inanimate object, but I'm an animist and everything's got a consciousness. And you are telling it, you know, I want you to cleanse the space. I want you to, remove all toxins, psychic toxins, all spiritual danger, whatever it is that you wanted to do. And last, hang them as needed. Pay attention if they ring spontaneously. You can also wear tiny bells as jewelry. You can also just ring. I mean, I actually don't have metal bells here. I have some Japanese clay bells not far from where I'm sitting, but this is for metal bells. And you can ring them as needed, or you can wear them. You can wear them as jewelry. You can wear them attached to your clothing. Pay attention if they ring spontaneously because they are talking to you once you've charged it. And don't ignore it now. If it starts ringing, and obviously if there's a breeze, okay, that's why it's ringing. But if you can't see, if it's just ringing and you don't know why it's ringing, well, then pay attention and see what that is. I used to live in Hoboken, New Jersey, which at that time was a very old Italian community. Is where Frank Sinatra is from. And New Year's Eve, people would come out. It's an old custom, and they would bang their pots and pans. And people who don't know or who don't, respect folk practices, oh, they're just making noise. But no, it is, that threshold. You're going from the old year to the new year, and you want to cleanse away all that old negativity and that sound of metal, metal against metal. That is as much a form of cleansing as a smoke cleansing, or their salt cleansing, water cleansing. It's an important form, and I mean it's one that I love. So here we are, this full moon. It's going to start waning, and the waning moon is really good for banishing. And so, what do you need to banish from your life? And it could be danger, it could be personal danger, it could be feelings of unease, could be something else, could be someone else, could be whatever. But that personally, use those little metal bells.
It was so exciting that you pulled that ring that bells for Risa, I imagine specifically, because that is so significant for you and has been
Yeah.
so significant for you, Risa, over the past year or so.
I got to ring the bell at the end of cancer treatment this year.
Oh, wow. Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's a strange one, I didn't want to do it at the end of chemo. There were people there who will never finish chemo, but at
Yeah.
the end of radiation, in a little private room with just my daughter and my husband, we rang a little bell. And I felt a wave go through me, and this will be the last thing I say before we officially spiral open the recording part of this circle and then invite the weavers who are here to get to be with you off the record. Um, the listeners for Samhain at this thin veil time when there is so much of a sense of danger. ring your fucking bells. Ring your bells to protect your home, to protect your neighbors. Bang on pots and pans. Declare safety. Give each other courage. Call in what we need next. The little lantern that you are. And we love you. And bless you fucking be. All right, I'll stop recording. If you have a little more time, we would love to get to.
I do.
Yay.
You're just wonderful. And this has been very profound.
You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven, come hang out with us. Or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches Deck of Oracles. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.